Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237, coming at you with another slasher film, 80s slasher film, and one of my all-time favorites. I know, I'm still trying to figure out something to do with that light so it's not as obnoxious, but this is one of my all-time favorite 80s slasher films. Some of the best gore, best kills, a story that's not too hokey. That is 1981's My Bloody Valentine. Is there any way to see it without that fucking light being in the way? And I know this cover makes it look like the remake, but it's not. I do own the remake, and eventually I'll go over remakes, and that one is not nearly as good as this one. This is definition of classic slasher. And of course, 1981 was a heyday for horror films. I mean, between 78 and 84, I would say, is the golden age of horror, or for slashers, or even 80s horror especially. But 80, 81, and 82 were fantastic years, and this is one of the best to come out at that time. I really like this edition because I think this was the first time it was completely uncut. If you watch the extended cut, it has all the shit they cut out, but it's still like not transferred very well, so you can tell the stuff they added. The copy of Silent Night Deadly Night that I have does the same thing. I'm sure there's a Blu-ray out by now that it's all cleaned up, and this has some good features too. Bloodlust, My Bloody Valentine, and the Rise of the Slasher Film. Bloodlines, an interactive horror film history. It's been a while since I've seen them, but any history on horror and the slasher genre, which is my favorite genre, is always awesome. So, My Bloody Valentine, this is a Canadian film because slasher films, not only were they incredibly cheap, but a lot of them were made in Canada because they were even cheaper. And I think it has something to do with taxes and stuff. They could get away with a lot more. This was one of the biggest examples next to Prom Night and Happy Birthday to Me and many, many other ones. But, because of the success of Halloween and Friday the 13th, they were thinking, well, what holiday can we do next? And they settled on Valentine's Day. And they found a great setting because, Halloween is in like suburbia and Friday 13th is in the woods at a camp. I don't think anybody would have thought to use a coal mine. And I think the look of the killer, the whole coal miner garb looks awesome. I think the mine is it works well. It's dark. It's somewhat atmospheric. Creepy and stylish. But it says Lawrence P. Raffle from monstersthatplay.com. I agree. Creepy and stylish. And I like the story. It's set up that there's this town, small town, kind of out in the middle of nowhere, called Valentine's Bluff. And it's sort of like those towns you've seen in older movies that there's like this big company that sort of keeps the community together. Everybody goes to work there. I can kind of relate to that because the city I live in, or the town I live in, has a place like that where back in the day, you got out of school, you went to work there like your fathers before you. Nowadays, it's hard as fuck to get in to place in my town. I've been trying to get in for years, but it's somewhat similar. It's not a coal mine, but anyway, they're having their first Valentine's dance in 20 years. Reason being is because 20 years ago, there was a dance, and two supervisors in the mines were in a hurry to get there, so they left without shutting down the methane lines. There was 6 men still down there, an explosion, and it took 6 weeks to dig them out, and there was only one guy left alive, Warden, who stayed alive by killing and eating the other guys, and he went crazy. And he got his revenge on the 2 supervisors, killed them with a pickaxe, and pretty much, what's the word? Warned never to have a Valentine's dance again and scared the community. But now, 20 years later, what can happen? And shit starts happening again, and you get some of the best gore effects, and just perfect example next to Friday the 13th of just, and like Evil Dead's not a slasher film, but just the kind of why practical effects work. The remake is full of CGI. I mean, mainly because it was 3D, and I guess 3D you kind of have to do that, but even if you watch it in 2D, the remake sucks fucking ass because it's all CGI for the most part. I don't really remember any good practical gags in it. This is all practical and it looks glorious. I mean, because you get the mayor and the chief Newbie, who I can't remember the actors' names, but they're always together, and you know they get a heart-shaped box with a human heart in it, so they take that as an omen, a warning, because there's like these little roses are red, violets are blue type Valentine's rhymes that sound like warnings. There's this sweet elderly woman named Mabel who runs a laundromat. She organizes like the dance. Her death happens off screen, but later on she's found in the dryer, and I mean she's all burnt and crispy, and or not crispy, but you know, just roasted, and glorious effects. Looks amazing. You know, they cancel the dance, so then all the workers who are all friends, who are all dating girls who are all friends, they decide to have a party at the mine, like in the rec hall or the break room. And then some of them decide to go into the mine, and that's where pretty much the main event of the film is. And then, of course, you know, like Friday the 13th, where there's Crazy Ralph who says, you know, you're all doomed. In this movie, it's the bartender, and, you know, he gets a pickaxe, like, through here and out his eye, and it looks great. I mean, not to spoil anything, but I mean, this is up there with Friday the 13th, hailed as one of the all-time classics of the genre. So, I mean, if you're a fan of 80s horror, chances are you've seen it. But there is a twist at the end. I will say spoiler alerts before I get to that. But of course, with slashers, the main thing to talk about is the deaths. But there is more to it than that. There's more of a story, because the lead guy, TJ, he's the son of the owner of the mine. He was dating this girl, Sarah, and then some years ago, he just up and left to start a new life somewhere. Fell on his ass, and then he just came back. When he came back, things were all different. So now he's played by Paul Kelman. She's played by Lori Hollier. And Neil Affleck is Axel. Axel is her new boyfriend, and they all work together in the mine. You know, you have the lovable big guy, Hollis. You have the clown, goof-off, Howard. This other guy, Lil Jon, even though he's tall. This other guy, Dave, who's kind of a hard-ass, you know, troublemaker. And, like, you can remember all their names because this movie is just memorable and just great characters. Like, you actually give a shit about these characters because they're fun. They're fun to watch. And I love the camaraderie between them all, because I've worked in places where you know, not like when I worked fast food or at Walmart, but, you know, some places I've worked, you make those friendships, you know, where you're fucking with each other and you call each other assholes, and, you know, it's fun. You know, just watching this made me think of some of the places I've worked, some of the friendships I've had working with people. You know, just you fuck with someone, like, you asshole. Fun shit. And, you know, there's like that love triangle between TJ, Axel, and Sarah. and the drama within that. The remake really plays on that shit a lot. Almost gets kind of soapy. But, once they're down in the mine, or at least in the break room and then the mine, that's where the main event is. I mean, this one, I won't say the characters' names, but this one kid, he goes to get food and they're boiling hot dogs and he gets his head stuck in it. I don't know how plausible that is. And, the camera's in there looking at his face underwater. Again, great effects for burns. And then later you see him stuffed in the freezer and you get to see the effects even more. This one girl, one of my favorite kills is she gets grabbed by the head like it's a POV shot. Killer grabs her by the head and just like picks her up, and just like this tracking shot on her face with his hands on her head, and he picks her up and he just plunges her head into this busted pipe, so it goes through her head and out her mouth, turns the water on. That looks great. This other guy, there's like a nail gun. He gets a couple nails in his head. And this always freaks me out a little bit. There's a bunch of movies where people get head injuries, like stabbed in the head or blows to the head, and they're all loopy and fucked up. Because it's like, you don't come back from that. You might as well be dead. And one guy gets dropped down the shaft by the neck so bad that his head pops off. And, just inventive kills, because the remake really plays on the whole pickaxe thing. And this one doesn't. You only get one death, well, two deaths with a pickaxe. 3 deaths. Okay. 3, 1 you don't see, and that's the woman in the dryer later on. But other than that, I think there's only 2, and the rest are all just inventive kills. And then, of course, okay, spoiler alert. Before I say spoiler alert, again, one of my all-time favorite 80s slashers, one of the best there is. It's up there with Friday 13th, Halloween, Maniac, The Burning. Just really classic. I really love My Bloody Valentine. Way better than the remake. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, go see it. Find a way to get it. And enjoy it. Because if you're a slasher fan, there's no reason why you won't love this. Because it is one of the ones that is just, it's a genre favorite. It's one of my favorites. So, spoiler alert. Because it is a twist ending. I think you're made to believe it's TJ, and then, maybe supposed to believe it's Axel. And of course, it's a slasher film, so of course things happen where, oh, now that person's dead, so he's not the killer. Well, eventually, you find out it's Axel. Axel's the killer. Why? Because when he was a boy, he saw his father be killed by Harry Warden. And he hid under his father's bed. And then, you get the ending where Axel he's trapped under all the rubble and his arm's out, and he even cuts his own arm off so, people will pull it out. And I should have said this before spoilers, but I really like the folk song at the end too. Because coal miners, they have folk songs. During the end credits, there's that great folk song about Harry Warden and the town of Valentine's Bluff. Normally I don't like folk music, but I do like that song. So again, it's just, what else? Slashers, it's so easy to get through the story, because usually there isn't one. Just a group of people goes to a place, usually on a holiday, and they get killed one by one. But with this, you get good characters, you get, a unique setting, a coal mine. Of course, it's on a holiday, but it's Valentine's. This was before everything was so done. I'm surprised they didn't work all the way down to Arbor Day. They might have, but just I don't know how many times I can say the word classic, but that's exactly what this is. I love this movie. And this is 100% proof. Again, this might not be to the effect of David Cronenberg's The Fly or John Carpenter's The Thing by any stretch of the word. But this is one of those movies where they just went for it with the gore, all practically, and it looks beautiful. It's horrific and grisly, but, you know, I love gory movies. I love seeing how they can... I love gore. I love seeing how they can kill people on screen. And when they do it practically with real substance, you know, I like seeing the magic. CGI to me is not magic. CGI looks like fucking ass. And I keep going back to that because the remake has a lot of fucking CGI. But yeah, My Bloody Valentine is just classic. It's great. I love it. One of my favorite slasher films. A lot of people, like, I was reading online that some people consider this to be underseen or underrated. I mean, maybe it is. But from what I've seen and from what I can tell, this is a favorite or up there for a lot of people, fans of the genre. And it deserves to be because it's awesome. But I'm just repeating myself now. My Bloody Valentine, one of the best 80s slashers, fun as hell, great kills, great gore, shitty remake. Cross your heart and hope to die. For Room 237, that's My Bloody Valentine. Thank you.